everyone, welcome back to my channel, Everyone's Books and Tea. Today we are going to be doing episode 2 of my Around the World challenge. I really love doing episode 1 and I'm excited to continue this series and see all the places that we are going to travel to in the coming months. Last time we went to St. Helena where we read a book called Remote and learned about island life from people who actually lived on the island, though the book itself kind of had its ups and downs. If you want to watch that episode, I will link it in the description below. For today's episode, we will also be going to an island, which is also a British overseas territories. I promised you in the beginning of this year, when I chose all the places we would be traveling to, I randomized it, but somehow 2 British overseas territory islands were chosen in a row. But that's okay, because these are 2 very different islands. So this is where we are going to be going for this episode. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about this place to see if you can make a guess about where we will be traveling. So location is important to know where we are going. So these islands are located in the North Atlantic Ocean, a little bit south of the Bahamas, a little bit north of Haiti. And they actually consist of an island chain of 30 islands, only 8 of which are actually inhabited. Like I said, they are a British overseas territories, but what's interesting is that they actually use the American dollar as their currency, which is kind of unique and fun. The economy for these islands rely on tourism as well as offshore financial services. Tourism is huge on these islands, especially spring break tourism. People come down here for 2 big reasons. The first is their miles and miles and miles of white, sandy, beautiful beaches. And the second is for the diving in the barrier reefs. The islands are known to have the 3rd largest barrier reef, which brings divers from all over the world to visit. So now let me give you some unique facts about these islands to help you narrow it down to where we are traveling to this episode. So first off, these islands are known for having a history of piracy. And one of their most famous pirates that used these islands as a hideout was Calico Jack Rackham, along with his wife Anne Bonny, who lived on Pirate Cay Island, which today has a different name. The island flag itself is pretty unique as well. It has a conch shell, a spiny lobster on it, as well as a cactus. And at one point, it actually had an igloo on it. And you may be wondering, how did a tropical island get an igloo on it? Well, that is a great question. Apparently, the English flag maker that was making the flag for the islands mistaken the island's salt mounds for igloos. And thus, for 100 years, this tropical island had an igloo on its flag. These islands are also where ripsaw music was originated. Ripsaw music is created by taking a handsaw and using a knife blade to scrape across the saw's teeth to create the musical sound. And lastly, back in 1962, when John Glenn was orbiting the Earth in his Mercury capsule, becoming the first man to ever orbit the Earth, he landed in the ocean outside of these islands. And his first step back onto land, once he landed back on Earth, was onto these islands. So those are just some fun facts about the place that we are going to, and the name of this place is Turks and Caicos Islands, which a lot of people are familiar with for like I said before, their wonderful beaches. So now that we know where we're going to, we have to find a book that's either set on these islands or written by an author from these islands. So let's start taking a look. So like I said in my last video, I found the easiest way to find books that are set on these islands is just to pull up the Goodreads list, because they are usually pretty extensive and accurate. So let's do that. So here are the list of Goodreads books that are set in Turks and Caicos. There is not that many of them. It looks like only 12, but we can take a quick look through them and see if any of them draw our interest. I know the first book, The Bone Hacker by Catholic Reichs, is in her Temperance Brennan series, and this one's book 22. So I'm not going to jump right into book 22 in this series, so we're going to have to eliminate that one. There's a lot of nonfiction books on here as well, and a lot of times those are very difficult to get because they are no longer being published. But we have The History of Mary Prince, we have The Turks and Caicos Islands, Our Heritage, Our History, A History of Turks and Caicos Island, which is right next to it. So if we decide to go with a history book, those are some options. For some reason, there's a book here by Michael J. Fox. I don't know how that fits in with Turks and Caicos, but probably not going to go with that one. And then up on the top row, we do have a couple of fiction books. These 2 look like romances. We have Meant for Her by Natasha Madison, which is book 2 in the series. Then we have Their Last Resort by R.S. Gray. This This one was actually published fairly recently, being published in this year, so that could definitely be an option as is a kind of current book. And then we have Deep Hex, which is book 6 in a series. So not too many options this time around. We have some fiction books. A lot of those are in series. We have some nonfiction books, which I usually don't like to read for this challenge because they can be a bit dry. So I think the one we're going to go with is Their Last Resort by R.S. Gray. So let's take a quick look, see what this book is about. So it looks like this is a soft enemies to lovers romance where the two main characters, Cole and Paige, work at a resort on Turks and Caicos, and they drive each other crazy day after day after day. Paige works as a kind of activities director for the guests, while Cole is the assistant director for the entire resort. One day, Cole ends up having to fire Paige, but it's the same day that this hurricane strikes, and the two of them end up sheltering together. And now they may have to confront their true feelings for each other. So this sounds like a fun book set on a very pretty location, and it feels like the perfect summer read. So I'm excited to choose this book to kind of open up the summer reading, and I will let you know what I think of it once I start reading. So I will be back when I am back. So today's the day we are going to get started and read the book for our Around the World challenge. I think we'll be able to read the whole thing in one day. It's only 250 pages and it's a romance, and usually those are pretty quick reads, so I think we can get it done today. We'll find out. So again, the book is Their Last Resort by R.S. Gray. It was published this year, 2024, and is set in a resort at Turks and Caicos. So I am going to go start reading Their Last Resort by R.S. Gray, and I'll come back and check in once I'm halfway through the book. So I'll see you in a little bit. So I'm now halfway through the book. I'm on chapter 16, so exactly 50% of the way through. And I have definitely been enjoying reading this. I'm happy that I chose to read this as the weather got a lot hotter because it's definitely a summer read for sure. So obviously the book's set in Turks and Caicos on this luxury resort, and it follows the two main characters, Paige and Cole. Paige is a excursion leader, I guess you could say. I don't know what her official title is, but basically she leads excursions at this luxury resort for the guests. And she takes them hiking, she takes them sailing, she takes them snorkeling. So she's just kind of well-rounded in all the outdoor activities. And some indoor activities as well, such as bingo night, movie night, all those types of things. She comes from a family that always traveled. Her parents were marine biologists, so they were always traveling around the world. And Paige, as an adult, has decided to kind of try to lay down roots and not move every 3-4 months every year. She's hoping that this resort in Turks and Caicos becomes her home, that she's able to establish long-term friendships. Cole, on the other hand, works on the executive sides of things using budget spreadsheets, and it's not totally clear, or I'm not totally clear, what entirely his job is, but basically it's on the business side of things, not so much on the guest side of things. So the synopsis of this book led me to believe this was going to be a enemies to romance book. It's not. It's definitely not a enemies to romance book. Even from the beginning of the book, like the first several chapters, you know that these two actually like each other, but they just don't want to tell each other that. And instead, they get themselves into these little conflicts between each other, and both of them want to pretend that they don't like the other. So it's not a true enemies to romance because they already like each other. It's kind of coming over that fear to finally, hopefully, tell each other that they like each other. I'm saying each other a lot, but you get what I'm talking about. So this book is set into chapters, obviously, because that's how most books are. But each chapter in this book is seen from a viewpoint of either Paige or Cole. So far, I can say I definitely enjoyed Paige's chapters more so than Cole's. Paige just has this very sarcastic, witty sense of humor. So seeing things from her point of view is much more entertaining at this point in time. And I really enjoy seeing her thoughts about all the different interactions that she has with Cole and with the guests in all these different excursions that she is leading. The humor I enjoyed. It's kind of like like I said, it's kind of like a witty humor, a little bit sarcastic humor, and I actually found myself laughing a couple of times in this book out loud, which is not something I typically do, but there was a couple of sentences so far that actually had me laughing. Cole's chapters, on the other hand, kind of go along with his job. They're a little bit more boring, I would say, at this point, and he his personality doesn't seem as strong as Paige's does, but you kind of see the glimpses here and there of who he truly may be. But for the most part, it's kind of facts based, and it's actually written well based on the character that you're seeing this viewpoint from. So I'm not criticizing the writing or anything. It's definitely written as as a personality that you expect Cole to have at this point in time. So, like I said, so far I am definitely enjoying this book. It's just a fun summer romance read. There hasn't really been too much spice in this book yet, but of course, the two main characters are kind of still in their enemy stage. So, we'll see as I get further in the book if it gets more spicy or not. So, I'm going to go get back to reading, and likely we'll finish this book. There's only another 120 pages to go, so it shouldn't take me too much longer to get through this. And I will come back once I've completed the story. So I'll see you guys soon. So I have finished the book, Their Last Resort by R.S. Gray. Every time I look at this cover, I love it. I love the sunset in the background, the water, and it really brings in kind of the vibes that you get in this book. So I would give this book somewhere probably a 3.75 out of 5 stars. It's a fun book. It's definitely a summer read. It's probably not a book I would go back to and read again, which is why I'm giving it a little bit less than a 4-star. But it's definitely a great book to kind of pick up for the beach. If you want to go, sit outside and read in the summertime. Definitely not a book I would pick up in the winter unless you want to get jealous of the water and the sun that these characters are experiencing. So the synopsis kind of tells you a little bit about what goes on in the second half of the book. There's a hurricane that comes and forces Cole and Paige into the same room, and then the relationship kind of goes on from there. Obviously, I'm not going to talk too much more about that because I don't want to spoil it for anyone that chooses to read it. I will say that Cole's chapters get a little bit more entertaining to read as the book continues on. Pages stay the same. They're just fun and entertaining as well to read. So I really enjoyed both of these characters. I felt that Paige was written very well. She's a very fun, witty character to read. And I enjoyed Cole's side of things too. I think he was a great male character lead for this story. And I enjoy kind of seeing the little peaks of his personality that you start getting throughout the book as the book goes further on. And you start finding out what he's really like when he's not at his job. The other thing I loved about this book was that there was not one of those third act conflicts that just kind of throws you off at the end of the stories. There's some romance books that you get to that third act and you're like, why did they do this? It just seemed like such a silly third act that they threw in here. This book did not have that like cringy third act at the end of the book, and I really was very happy about that. This book definitely made me want to go move to a resort and start working there because of all the fun experiences that the employees seem to have. Minus the hurricane, of course. But, being able to go out to the beach when you're off, be able to go sit around a bonfire at night and, just living at Turks and Caicos where there's the beautiful sandy beaches and the water and the weather just kind of made me want to just, get up and go find a job at one of these resorts. So like I said, I would give this book a 3.75 out of 5. It's a book that keeps you entertained throughout. It definitely got way more spicy the second half of the book, so if that's not something you're into, then you may not enjoy picking up this book. As far as the Turks and Caicos part of this book, as this is my Around the World challenge, this book could have been set at any resort on any island, so you didn't get much of a feel for Turks and Caicos itself. So from that standpoint, wasn't really the best choice for the Around the World challenge, but I love the book. I enjoyed it. Sometimes you get, these little misses, but the book itself was great, and I'm glad I chose it as we are starting to get into summer. I needed something to deal with the heat wave that we are currently going through. So this definitely helped because I could imagine being on the beach, being in the water, and, dealing with 90-degree weather. So overall, happy I chose it. Enjoyed the book. I'm looking forward to next month's Around the World challenge, see where we're going to go and what book we're going to choose. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a little bit about Turks and Caicos, things that you may not otherwise have known. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the subscribe button. If you've read any books on Turks and Caicos, or if you've been there before, definitely leave a comment below. And otherwise, I will see you in my next video, which will be my, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the July TBR video. So I will see you next time. Take care. Bye.